with the rest of the slides that we have to do. Guys, I see that Vigilant is busy struggling a little bit. So if at any point you can't hear me, please just let me know so I can just reconnect from my side. I don't know what is happening with Vigilant, but it's not just me. It's all the lecturers are complaining. So I know they are busy looking into it and just checking essentially what is wrong with VC Learn at the moment. Okay. So guys, let me just quickly share my slides with you again, and then we'll continue with the rest of the session. Okay, so guys, we've looked at phase 1 of HR planning, and now we're going to look at the second step or the second phase that we also have to consider when planning in the HR department. So the second phase looks at human resources forecasting. So what we are essentially doing here is we are looking towards the future. We are trying to balance the human resources supply as well as the human resources demand. There's no use that we maybe have 10 positions open inside of the company, but we can only supply 3 employees. So we have to continuously look at what will the future demand as well as the future supply of employees look like. Things that we have to consider is the economic growth, so the growth of the economy. How fast is the economy growing? How fast is the business growing as well? Any new developments in the business? So are we, for instance, opening another branch? Are we going to increase our operations? Are we going to sell another product, for instance? And then lastly is the labor market. So we also have to continuously look at what new qualifications are being offered by universities, what are there's any skills that graduates are maybe lacking that we have to plan for. Are there any specific skill shortages that we have to plan for in the future as well? So what does the labor market look like? And then the last phase in our HR planning process is the human resource plan. So we need to look at the certain guidelines for any type of business that the human resources will have to provide for. So we essentially have to ask, what must we do today so that we can be prepared for tomorrow? And that is why the HR department needs to continuously work very, very, very closely with the rest of the company, especially with top management, so that they are aware of what top management is busy with, what their plans are for the next 5 or 10 years, so that the HR department can also do their own planning. There might, for instance, be a certain position that that management is planning for the next 5 or 10 years, and that position doesn't even exist yet. This is something that HR needs to be aware of, so that they can already start looking and planning towards the future. So we need employees. Where do we get employees? Okay. So the first thing we're going to look at is recruiting of employees. And then the second thing we're going to look at is our talent selection. So guys, when we look at recruiting of employees, we have 2 different types. We either have recruiting from the inside of the organization, recruitment from the outside. We are also going to look at the recruitment procedure as well as the recruitment methods. And then under talent selection, we're going to look at the preliminary screening, the intensive assessment, and then the final selection of the particular employee. So guys, with internal and external recruitment, there's a little bit more slides here than what I'm going to focus on today. So I'm just going to essentially explain to you what the difference is between internal and external recruitment. So internal recruitment is where we will fill the vacancy with an existing employee. So think, for instance, I just read about Adapt IT. It's quite a big IT company where the CEO on the 6th of August have now resigned. There's some conspiracy theories between his ex-wife and a new partner happening that he was apparently involved in. He says that he was not involved in it, but he has now resigned, and they have now appointed an interim CEO. The new interim CEO was obviously in another position before they were appointed as the CEO. So the position that they were in is now vacant. That means that that position needs to be filled by someone else. So there will essentially be a series of promotions where people will move up in the ladder to fill the vacant positions that now exists above their current position. So when someone leaves, for instance, when someone leaves a company, then that position becomes vacant and we will promote someone into that specific position. Then external recruitment. So external recruitment is where we will look for a new employee outside of the organization. And we'll do this through advertisements, or for instance, we can also look at other employees maybe giving us references or names that we can maybe speak to people. We can also use a combination of internal and external recruitment. So this is where we will look inside of the company first. We will look for someone that will be able to fill that specific job. And if we can't find someone that can fill that specific position, then we will advertise and we will look for someone outside of the company. What can also happen sometimes is that we will first, once like I said, look for someone that we can promote into that position. If we can't find someone, we will advertise and we will open this advertisement to everyone else inside of the organization. So let's say, for instance, that the HR manager position is vacant, and there might be someone that has always wanted to work in HR. They might be in finance or in sales now, but their dream has been to be an HR manager. So they will then be given that opportunity to apply for that position together with any external person outside of the organization that can then also apply for that specific position. So when we look at the recruitment procedure, like we already spoke about, internally and externally. So the benefit of recruiting from inside the organization is that you already have all the information about that specific person. So you already have the employment history, what their goals are, what their requirements is in order to, for instance, to fill that position. And you also you already know if that employee is willing to recruit, to relocate to another office, for instance. So there might be an HR management position open at the Cape Town office, and you already know if any of your candidates that are currently working for you is willing to relocate to Cape Town. So external recruitment, guys, it is a bit more complex form of recruitment. And the number one thing is just because you don't know the person. Okay, so with internal recruitment, we are not essentially starting from scratch. With external recruitment, we are. Because we have to consider who are we recruiting, What type of employee are we looking for? Where to recruit, how to recruit, and external recruiting means that we have to go to the particular labor market. We also have to look at the geographical area that we are drawing this person from. For instance, if our office is in Johannesburg, we will, for instance, only advertise in Gauteng or nearby areas, unless you might advertise in Cape Town, for instance, as well. But that person, they need to be aware that they will have to relocate to Johannesburg. Okay. So guys, when we look at some of our recruitment methods that we have, these are for the external recruitment. The first one is through advertisements. So guys, this is honestly the most common one. You guys will know this. You can go onto PNet, you can go onto Indeed, you can open any newspaper. There will also be advertisements for vacancies inside of the newspaper. Another option that you can use is through consultants or labor agencies, recruitment agencies as well. Varsity College, which is part of Advitech. Advitech has a separate branch that is a recruitment agency. So they are specifically people that companies will come to. They'll say, we have this and this and this vacancy available. And they will then work through their CVs that they might already have on file, or look for CVs of people that they can send to this particular company for an interview. You can also recruit through existing employees, like I mentioned earlier. So you can maybe say to existing employees, listen, do you know of someone that can, for instance, come and help us out as a waiter, or someone that can come and help us out while another employee is, for instance, on maternity leave? You can also have recruitment through a personal approach. So this is another word for this is headhunting. This is where you will go through CVs that's maybe available on PNet, and you will then call that person and say, hi, we have this particular position available. Would you like to come for an interview? If you guys, I don't know, I think I told you guys the other day. I don't know if I did. We are watching this new series. If you guys are at all into Formula One, it's called Drive to Survive. It's on Netflix. It's just, honestly, guys, I'm sorry. It's just such a cool series for us to watch. All of you guys will remember probably watching Formula One with your dads growing up. I've never really been into Formula One, and that's all that my husband and I are watching is just Drive to Survive. We are now even watching Formula One on Sundays. But what happens on Formula One is that, for instance, on last night's episode, Red Bull was looking, because they only have contracts for a year with the majority of the drivers, because obviously it does depend on how well you drive and how many championships you win, how many points you can gather for the specific brand like Red Bull or Mercedes. So by the closer to the end of the year, the brands are already looking for other drivers. They don't wait for the drivers to come and apply. They don't put out an advertisement and say, hi, Red Bull's looking for a new driver, apply. They are looking at other drivers, and then they call up those drivers and say, hi, how are you doing? We would like you to come and drive for Red Bull, for instance. And I mean, who would say no to Red Bull? So headhunting is where we know we want a specific person, call them up, say, hi, how are you? Please come for an interview. And then we take it from there. Guys, then the other one in your textbook that's also being mentioned is radio, TV. I don't know if you guys have, I've never seen any advertisements on radio or TV unless it specifically is for the radio station, or for instance, the SABC, or for Generations, or whatever series or TV show. So I've never, for instance, seen Toyota advertising on radio or TV for a marketing manager. It doesn't really happen. So that will be very, very specific to the radio station or to the TV station, for instance. So guys, when we move on to talent selection, what happens with talent selection? This is now where we have we've put out our advertisement for this particular vacancy that we have for a marketing manager. We have received 50 CVs, for instance, of people that are applying for this position. And now we have to go and determine who do we want to employ. So we have to go and determine who will be the best person for this particular position. So the first thing, we'll start here with the application and shortlisting. We will look at their personal details, work history, hobbies, expectations. For instance, if our requirements say that you need to have a degree, we will put everyone that applied that does not have a degree aside because they do not meet the requirements that we have listed in the advertisement. If we, for instance, said that they need to have a driver's license, they don't have a driver's license, we will put them aside because they do not meet the requirements. So we will first distinguish between the candidates that have met the requirements versus those that have not met the requirements. Then from there, we will then invite the successful candidates that have met our requirements for an interview. After the interview, we'll also do a psychological assessment. Guys, I actually wanted to do a psychological, or it's called a psychometric test with you guys, but I struggled to find one that is, not like 100 questions. But what they do with this psychological testing or psychometric testing, it is just a test that they do in order to just delve a little bit deeper into what type of person you are, what type of personality you have. It is not to determine if you are going to steal from them or if you are maybe crazy or something. It's not that. It's just to delve a little bit deeper into what type of person you are. Then after the psychological testing, they will do the diagnostic testing. So this doesn't always happen. This is just what some companies will do. So this is once again where they will ask you specific questions in relation to the particular position, for instance. So if you are applying for an au pair, they will ask you, how do you feel about parents spanking their kids, for instance? Okay. Or how do you feel about a child that is trying to manipulate you? Okay. So once again, they're just trying to gather any more information that they can, that they couldn't find from your CV or from the psychological testing. Not a lot of companies are still doing psychological testing. I'm not aware of. I know it used to be a thing a few years ago, but of all the interviews I'm aware of, there's not a. I don't know. I'm not aware of a lot of companies that do psychological testing. I am, however, aware that Varsity College does do like an integrity test. Because at Varsity College, if you want to work for Varsity College, you are dealing with students, you are dealing with their lives, you are dealing with marks, with assessments, for instance. So there needs to be a high level of integrity. So they will conduct an integrity test to see essentially how honest you are. Okay. So guys, then from the intensive assessment, we are moving on to final selection. So this is where from the interviews, we will then compile a short list of candidates that we feel will be suitable for the company. We will do a reference check. Maybe some of those references are not checking out, like with the OP example that we had. Then we'll compare the different applicants. If there needs to be a medical examination, we will then do a medical examination as well. So guys, I mean, if you, for instance, think of like rope access, for instance, people that are working with on high high buildings, on bridges and stuff, you can't be afraid of heights. Okay. So if that happens, for instance, then, or if you are afraid of heights, then obviously you will not be successful in this position, because one of the requirements are that you are not afraid of heights. We will then do a job offer. So our number one candidate, we will then do a job offer to, and then they can choose to accept the job offer or not. And so the candidate might say, thank you very much, but let's talk about the salary a bit more, or I have to relocate, so who's going to pay my relocation fees? Or let's maybe talk about leave, maybe another 2 days of leave, then I'm going to be a bit more happier. And the company will then essentially go back to the drawing board and say, can we provide a higher salary? Can we give the person 2 extra days of leave? And they will then say yes or no, and then take it from there. If the job offer with the first candidate is not successful, they will then move on to their second candidate that they, for instance, has. Guys, what sometimes also happen, what has happened to me, is you will give someone a job offer and then they'll say to you, thank you so much, but I've actually just accepted a job at another company. Okay, it happens. It's just one of those things. And then you will go to candidate number 2. Then after you have made your job offer, this will be the first day of the person's new job. Then you will there will be onboarding. So this is induction. They will arrive at a certain date, certain time at the company, and then you'll take them through everything that the company entails. You'll tell them where their computer is, who their manager is, who are the people that they are working with. And then you will also start with them meeting all the different line managers so that they can get a better overview of what the company is about. Sorry guys, I just wanted to reconnect. I'm worried about this internet of mine. Okay. So guys, then the next thing we're going to look at is developing our talent. Okay, so what I did is I put Richard Branson here at the bottom. He actually has very nice quotes with regards to employees. So what he said is train people well enough so that they can leave, but treat them well enough. So treat them well enough so that they don't want to. Remember that, and this is the thing that I think a lot of companies are struggling with, is that they're essentially saying is, why should I invest money in my employee if that person is going to leave? But what companies need to realize is that employees will leave, and you essentially have to invest in those employees. It will not only make your company better and will assist you to meet your goals, but if you can create a better employee, you are essentially creating a better person and you are creating a more successful person. So that is why it is important to continuously develop your talent and to develop your employees. We can't just keep employees in a basket forever. It doesn't work like that. We want to have employees that think differently, and that just employees that introduces new concepts, new ideas, and new blood into the company. And that is why we also recruit from the outside, for instance, is to bring that new blood, new thinking, new concepts into the company. So developing talent. This is another thing that HR managers in the HR department is responsible for. And this includes training my employees, asking employees, what are you struggling with? and then matching any training courses that we have with those skills that they are, for instance, lacking. If we have an employee, it's a sales employee, and they are really struggling to talk over the phone. Okay, they are struggling to sell this product. Then we can send that employee on a training course where they will learn skills that will assist them with selling the product, talking over the phone, making a cold call. I don't know if you guys have ever done cold calling. So cold calling is essentially where you will phone, you'll have a name and a number, and you'll just phone. Okay, so you don't know the person on the other line, they don't know you, they might not even know the company that you are working for, and you have to try and sell a product to them. And this is hard. This is the worst thing. If I will do anything before I do cold calling, I will rather send you an email. And guys, honestly, if you ever ask me to do cold calling, I will try to get out of it as soon as possible. I will rather send an email to that person than speak to that person over the phone. It is the worst thing for me. But I used to work with someone, Keanu, you remind me so much of him because, yeah, you have the same personality than what he had. But he was amazing with cold calling. Like his eyes will sparkle if you gave him a list of names and numbers. Like you made his day. It's like it was almost like it's his birthday. If you gave him a list of names to call. So when we look at developing our talent, there are two different development methods. And the first one is on the job training, and the second one is away from the job training. So guys, when we look at on the job training, this is where we can have job rotation. So if you, for instance, think of a mechanic, you can, for instance, remember that job rotation will not just be one person, it will be all the people that works for the company. So as a mechanic, you might start off working only with the alternator, for instance. That is what you're doing for 6 months. And then you will move on to working with the fuel tank, for instance. Someone else will then move to working only with the alternators. Then after 6 months, you will move on, you'll only work with the radiator, for instance. But after 2 or 3 years, you will know how to service every single part of that specific car. So you are essentially starting to get an idea of every single part of that job. So if something happens, then you will be able to fill in because you've done job rotation. You already know that part of what that position entails. Job shadowing is where you will then shadow someone else in order to see how are they doing things, what are they doing. This is a very nice way to train new employees, is to have them sit with you so that they can exactly see what you are doing. We can have enlarged or enriched job responsibilities. We have spoken about this in first semester, where we will either enrich or enlarge the amount of responsibilities you have. So where you initially, sorry guys, we initially only answered the phones as a secretary. You now have to answer the phones and also manage the CEO's diary, for instance. Then we can also have job instruction training, coaching, mentoring, and then learnerships or internships. Then away from the job training, this is where the employees will then go to a certain conference center where they will then either attend a conference, a seminar. We can also have e-learning, so we can send them on a course that they have to do online. They can then get a certificate afterwards. We can do role playing. Another one is like scenario planning, for instance. So we'll give them a certain topic, and then we will act out the different scenarios. So if you have an angry customer that shouts at you, what do you do? Okay, so you are essentially giving them the tools on how to deal with every single situation. So guys, I'm going to stop here for today. I'm not going to see you guys again for this week. I am going to see, however, I'm going to see you guys next week, face to face. Remember, next week is going to be face to face. Next week is not going to be online. So I'm going to see you guys in class. And then we will continue with the rest of this chapter. And then probably by the end of next week, we will then have finished this particular chapter. Okay. So guys, what I want you to please do for me is I just want you guys to go over what we've done today. I just want you guys to have an overview of what exactly HR management is about, so that when we start the class next week, that you already have that background of what HR is about. Again, 100%. Okay, guys, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you guys next week. Hopefully, I'm feeling better next week. I don't know, my ears blocked, so I'm hearing myself twice the whole time, which is so irritating. It's I'm literally repeating. Feels like I'm repeating